Welcome, guys, to this week's live Q&A. Welcome. If you are just getting here, you're just joining us. My name is Robert. I'm the founder of the College Investor, and we are doing our weekly live Q&A. It's nice to be back on YouTube this week. So we have followers over here on TikTok. We got YouTube and Twitch going right now. I think we might also have Twitter and LinkedIn going as well. So if you are joining us, now is the time to start dropping your questions in the chat. And of course, we'll talk about them. They can be student loan related, financial aid related, general personal finance, wherever you want to go with this. I am happy to talk about it. You guys know I love doing this every single week. So I'm going to do a little housekeeping here as people are joining us. But please drop your questions, come say hi, tell me where you're from, tell me what you're thinking about when it comes to your money, student loans, financial aid, higher education, whatever that means to you. Let's talk about it. Welcome over on YouTube as well. It is nice to be streaming live on YouTube again this week. I know it's been a few weeks, but I can only do YouTube when I'm in the office, guys. A lot of time I am doing our live Q&As out in the field. But tonight is an office night, so that means that we can do live Q&A on all the platforms, not just on TikTok. So welcome, guys, if you're just joining us. I see a bunch of people trickling in on TikTok. I am seeing a few people come join us on YouTube as well. So say hi, drop your name, say hi in the chat, drop your question, and we'll get rocking and rolling. I think we're going to keep seeing a lot of questions this week on what's happening with SAVE. I think we're going to see a lot of questions this week on graduate student loans, what's considered graduate school, professional school. I think we might get some financial aid related questions. I know a lot of the early deadlines were there. I don't know if you guys saw the article today about UCSD and their college freshman class and how many students need to take remedial math classes because of things like grade inflation, test optional, and now 12% of their freshman class this year has to take middle school or high school math. And this is a trend we're seeing in a lot of colleges, and it just goes to show how this grade inflation thing is really impacting colleges, but it also just means that it's impacting these kids. Like some of these kids couldn't do elementary and middle school math, and they had A's, and they thought they should be going to an engineering school. So I found that to be really interesting, and we just talked about it on the website today. Just finished writing that a little bit ago, so if you haven't seen that yet, I find it to be so interesting because it's kind of just the confluence of all the trends we've been seeing over the last 4 or 5 years in higher education. Definitely seeing a lot on concerns about what the future of graduate student borrowing and professional student borrowing looks like. You're really going to have to make some mindful decisions, guys. I know people are frustrated with the loan limits, but the data does support these loan limits in terms of the financial outcomes of these degrees. Sergio, thank you for the comment. I see that there. UCLA freshman had a 900 on their SAT score. Some of that's crazy, right? But the crazy thing is they didn't have to submit that SAT score, right? Because all the UCs are test optional. So you don't have to submit that score. You could show your GPA as being all A's, and hey, here you are. I have a big problem with it because I find it to be pseudo-predatory. These kids are going to college. There's a high likelihood they're going to fail. They're going to drop out. They're going to quit. Now they have 1 to 2 years of tuition that they paid for. Yeah, they might have gotten a Pell Grant or something, but chances are that they took out student loans, and now they have all these student loans, no college degree, and that's the worst outcome, right? Anthony, if I'm a high income earner, should I stay on SAVE? I got into it right before my income skyrocketed. Anthony, I don't think that 99% of people should be in SAVE more than another year or two. The only exceptions of who should stay in SAVE are those that have run the numbers and they can't afford either IBR, pay as you earn, or RAP, or any of the other repayment plans. People that should stay and save also include people that might be getting a lower income next year and want to take advantage of that lower income for when they certify their payments. For someone like you, that you're a high income earner, why? Like, what are you doing? It's time to make a plan and start paying off your loans, or make a plan to get your loan forgiveness, one or the other, but execute that plan. So 215, UPenn asked for my parents' W-2 forms, but they're self-employed. What should I do? I'm guessing this is for the CSS profile, 215 Prime. And the CSS profile asks you for your income from wages. It also asks you for your income from, small businesses or however you're earning it. So it really depends. Just because they're self-employed doesn't mean they didn't get a W-2. I'm self-employed and I give myself a W-2 and I have a small business. You need to see what they input from their tax return, and then you need to upload it. They could still be self-employed and have a W-2. If they don't, then I would question whether they accurately put their information in on the CSS profile, because the only thing that IDOC is asking you for to upload is what matches what you put in your actual CSS profile. So I'm guessing you reported wages, and so you got to show where those wages came from. If you didn't report any wages because you didn't have income from wages, you shouldn't have to report a W-2 as well. Welcome, guys. We are starting to get a crew in here, and I have 0 hearts still on TikTok. Tap that screen, guys. Let people know we're alive here. I see you guys in the chat. I'm answering your questions. If you don't tap the screen and give hearts, TikTok thinks that there's no action happening over here, and then they won't share this out to the world. Oh, that's good. And then if you are joining us on Facebook, I see a few of you here. Sorry, on Instagram, I see a few. Instagram, man, I'm all over the place. On YouTube and Twitch. Twitch and YouTube folks, like the video, drop a comment, and we'll keep going. I did undergraduate loans, then graduate school loans after. Does the date of original consolidation count as day one? And Steve, no more. I don't quite understand your question for what you're looking for on day one. So thanks, Sergio, for the follow. There we go. Man, you guys gave me 300 hearts in a minute. Day one for repayment is when you start actually making payments. So I'm still not following you on what your question is. Are you talking about you have a new consolidation loan, and did you make payments before you consolidated or not? What's this repayment talking about? Are you looking for public service loan forgiveness? So you're talking about repayment counts. Again, public service loan forgiveness. Are you talking about time-based loan forgiveness for being on an income-driven repayment plan? It all varies. With that being said, though, Angsty, when you consolidated your loan, if you had any prior payments for PSLF or income-driven repayment plan payments, your new consolidation loan has a weighted average of those payments. If you had 0 before, well, then, of course, your current consolidation loan has 0. And then when you start making payments, you'll start checking the box out to have those eligible payments. So keep that in mind. Most people should not be consolidating their loans unless they have a Parent Plus loan. But if you've already done it, that's fine. Hopefully you didn't lose any payment counts as a result of it. Welcome, guys. I am starting to see some more action here. I love it. It's so funny how the hearts do it and then the algorithm kicks it off. So if I haven't said hi to you or you haven't said hi to me, put it in the chats. Coyote Katie, I said hi. Salzo, Lindsay, Austin, 215 Prime, I already answered it. Oh, there we go. Lindsay's right here in the chat. With the potential new professional versus graduate degree loan changes, what are your thoughts on students doing borrower defense? Well, again, borrower defense is a very specific cause of action, and it's that you were defrauded by your college because of things like they misrepresented potential enrollment stats. They misrepresented graduation placement rates. They misrepresented who was teaching the courses. And so if you can prove that you were defrauded by the college in order to enroll, that could also include things like college ranking fraud. We were covering this a little while ago, but a lot of colleges sent bad information to like US News, and US News called them on it and then like demoted the college. But if you said like, I used that ranking because I thought this school was a top 10 school and it turned out they were submitting false information, that's a cause for borrower defense to repayment. And you can apply. Because they changed the loan limits, that's not a cause of action under borrower defense to repayment. It sucks, especially for certain types of degrees that might or might not be required, but it's not a cause of action for loan forgiveness. So I hope that makes sense. I think the big thing here, Lindsay, is you got to realize that existing borrowers have no changes, right? And then you also, if you've already borrowed a graduate student parent or a Grad PLUS loan, you're grandfathered in for 3 years or the conclusion of your academic program. The new descriptions of professional versus graduate school is really only for new borrowers starting July 1st that have never borrowed for that graduate program before. So hopefully that clarifies it. 215. They were both contractors. That's cool. So, they got 1099s if they were a contractor, and they can report that 1099 income and send it in. It also should be on their tax return as well. So I'm pretty sure the IDOC's going to ask for their full tax return. And then also, if they have any 1099s that reflect that work, they can upload the 1099s as well. $215 Prime. I'll also say, if you haven't seen our CSS guide, click the link in bio, go to thecollegeofesther.com. We have a CSS walkthrough guide, and I put all the documents and have some pictures and some different things there, including how to do IDOC and upload all your stuff. And the income and asset section, you can go through and see what they all look like. Ijlal, I'm guessing that's right. Dad got denied for a Parent Plus loan. I'm cooked on how I'm going to pay for college now. Well, two things. Number one is mom, if she's around in the picture, she can also apply. It doesn't have to just be dad. Either can try. The only reasons you are getting denied for a Parent Plus loan specifically is if the parent is $2,000 in delinquency on debt currently, or has defaulted on a federal debt in the last 5 years, including wage garnishments, things like that. Not just federal debt, but any debt in the last 5 years. So that's why they're getting denied. So if mom, that doesn't apply to her, maybe mom can help. Part two, though, is you have to then just make some hard choices. There are a lot of ways to get low-cost college, but you have to choose a college that you can afford. Maybe it's a free community college in your state, whatnot. Third thing, this is where I lost my train of thought. This is why it's fun to do a live stream. You're just getting a stream of conscious. If your parents are denied the Parent Plus loan, you can get the independent student borrowing limits, which raises your federal student loan that you can take from $5,500 to $9,500. I know that doesn't necessarily solve it for a lot of people, but if you're at a low-cost college, state school, community college, moving that loan limit from $5,500 to $9,500 might be very helpful for you. 215 Prime. If it's on their own website, that would be very odd. I would be very mindful of submitting that, and then I would ask the college what they're actually looking for. Most colleges only use the FAFSA, which you don't have to provide that information on, or the CSS profile, which the CSS uses a third-party service. Well, it's their own service. It's a different website called IDOC, and you upload it there. If a college is asking you for something, then you got to ask that college. I don't keep track of what 2,000 colleges want or need, but you should ask that financial aid office. They might also just be trying to verify what you put on said FAFSA. So if the FAFSA was incorrect because maybe they didn't put something right, or the CSS profile was incorrect, it might all jive, and maybe that's why they're asking for it. Ruby Red, when it comes to IBR and RAP, which one pays lesser if you make $45,000 a year? Statistically, it's probably going to be the RAP plan, but I don't know your situation. So I encourage you to go right here, click the link in bio. Sorry, YouTube folks, there's no link in bio, but you can go to thecollegeofesther.com and you can see the calculators. There's an RAP calculator, there's a student loan calculator, and you can put in your number. You can put in how many kids you have. You can put in your family size. and then it'll give you an output. The reason I can't tell you generally, Ruby Red, is because your monthly payment is going to be based on your AGI, your family size, and how many dependent kids you have under the age of 17 living with you. So that's the kind of the things, and you can go play with those numbers, and it'll change, of course, every single year. All right. Going to pharmacy school, but I'm borrowing 30, 35K a year for 4 years. Income to debt ratio bad. You know, pharmacists generally earn good money. I'm assuming that this 30 or 35K is just for pharmacy school and you're hopefully debt-free going into it or very low debt going into it. You know, we have a how much student loan debt can I afford calculator on the College Investor. Put in your debt, put in your interest rates, and then understand what your payment's going to look like after graduation. I actually put a little number that says low, medium, or high if you, depending on what your career is. And so in pharmacy, I think you'll be okay. Is it ideal? No. But I think you'll be okay in pharmacy. What calculator is this? You can put in a search engine the how much student loan debt can I afford calculator. It used to be linked in bio when it went live a little bit ago. I might be able to link it up right now, but you can find it on the collegeinvestor.com RL. But it's literally called, I'm not good with names, I'm very straightforward. How much student loan debt can I afford calculator? And you can put in each year of college, private loans, federal loans, parent loans, choose your career, puts together with the BLS data, your loan data. It tells you what your expected payment would be after graduation. Compare that to your average salary in that career field. Kind of helps you with the math. Of course, this is all just taking statistics from the government. So it might be accurate for you. You might be above the norm. You might be below the norm, but at least it gives you a snapshot on what's there. Welcome if you guys are just joining us. We're 15 minutes in. We are getting some people following on TikTok. We're also live on YouTube tonight, Twitch, and Twitter. If you're following us anywhere, please like, subscribe, and follow. And of course, you can drop your questions in the chat and we'll talk about them. Getting a lot of questions on TikTok, but YouTube folks, I see you there, but I'm not seeing a lot of questions from you yet. So don't be shy. Drop them in the chat and we'll talk about them. All right. What do we got going on here? Magda, is it better to use a private loan at a lower fixed rate than using a mix of federal and personal loans? Well, I'm guessing you're meaning federal and private loans. So the order of operations, Magda, that I recommend, and I think every single honest financial planner and student loan and financial aid professional will tell you, is federal loans are always first, 100% of the time for the student. So the freshman can borrow $5,500, sophomore $6,500, junior, senior, and beyond $7,500. That is the best loan that you can get, bar none. Very unlikely that you're going to get a better private rate, but you might, and it's only going to be 1 or 2% better. For example, this year, the current federal loans for undergraduates are 6.39%. The best private loans are barely at 4 or 5%, but you have to have an 850 credit score and be making $250,000 a year with no debt, and it's a 5-year loan. And so most normal borrowers are not going to get that. They're going to get a 6, 7, or 8% private loan anyways. If you're getting a really low interest rate private loan, you probably didn't need the loan. So you could have just written a check for the same amount. So you always borrow federal student loan for the person first. The reason why is, despite the interest rate, federal loan interest rates really don't matter. Magda, a lot of people think the federal loan interest rate is going to be the game changer or what really makes or breaks them. And generally, when you repay the loan, it's about 1/3 of what you repay. The amount that really impacts you is how much you borrow. So federal loans, though, also have income-driven repayment plans. So again, this is why your interest rate doesn't matter, because if you don't make a lot of money, what you repay is based on your income. Doesn't have anything to do with your interest rate on the loan. And then number 3, most important, is 50% of all student loan borrowers qualify for full or partial loan forgiveness of some way, shape, or form. They might not all take advantage of it. They might not all use it. It might not be full loan forgiveness. It might require you to do things. But those options exist. And you don't get those with private loans. So the fact that you could get your loans forgiven, you have a 1 in 2 chance of it, that's fantastic. So borrow the federal student loan first. Then it comes to, as I said, freshmen only get $5,500. So how are you going to supplement? This is where it becomes problematic because honestly, you shouldn't have to supplement, but here we are. We know that school costs more than $5,000. You're probably going to have to either borrow a Parent Plus loan or a private loan. And with the changes to Parent Plus loans next year, I think that most families should look at private loans first. It's a little crazy, but because Parent Plus loans no longer have access to the income-driven plans we just spoke about, and they also no longer have access to major student loan forgiveness programs like public service, they are not that great. They also have a 4% origination fee. So federal Parent Plus loans should actually be the last resort if you can't get a private loan that beats the interest rate. So I'm assuming, we don't know the rates for federal loans for next fall yet. They won't come out until May, but the Fed's been cutting rates and we can make a guess that they're probably going to be about 8%. So if you can get a private student loan as a parent for less than 8%, it's probably a better deal than the Parent Plus loan would be. So that's kind of the matrix that you should think about. Child's federal student loan first in their own name. Parent, you can co-sign a private loan with your kiddo. Parent Plus loan as the last resort if you can't beat the rate on the private loan. So hope that helps. All right, Coyote Katie, why do parents get loans to send their kids out of state? Is out of state undergrad that important? You know, there's a lot of reasons why, Coyote Katie, and you know, out of state, in state, there's a lot of nuance to this, and you can't just generalize. Number one is sometimes out of state can be cheaper than in state, especially when we're talking about state schools. State schools don't give a lot of financial aid. However, private schools give fantastic amounts of financial aid. So it could literally be cheaper for you to go to a private elite school that might have a $60,000 sticker price because they give you $55,000 in financial aid and you're only borrowing that $5,000 remaining, than maybe going to a state school where they'll give you a little aid, but you're out of pocket $10,000 to $15,000 a year. It's really important to only make the choice on the net price, not necessarily the sticker price or anything. You also have to do a lot of research on what different types of aid packages could be available to you, both on merit and on need-based financial aid. So, but I also think that parents should not borrow as much as they do. So Katie, you're not gonna find me advocating parents borrow. I don't think they should, especially to the levels they do. I think it's doing the whole family a disservice. And part two, a lot of parents are borrowing to pay for things like room and board at like these fancy schools and fancy dorms. And literally you're buying your kid like a Four Seasons experience at 18 to 22. And that's an experience that they should be paying for themselves when they can afford it at like 40. You shouldn't be going into debt for that. Max, I am still on the SAVE plan and I owe $25K and will pay it off next year. Should I leave the SAVE plan? Well, Max, if you're paying off your loans, you don't have to. But I'll tell you what the behavioral finance and psychology will tell us is that you're more likely to succeed if you're on a repayment plan. And the reason you're more likely to succeed if you're on a repayment plan is because it's forcing you to do it every single month. Not to say that you're not an outlier and you haven't made a plan and you're not working your plan, but statistics and psychology and behavioral finance will just tell us you're more likely to succeed if you just get on a plan. So you do you, but I hope that helps kind of understand some of my backdrop from it, because I also see things like, I've heard this story before kind of thing. So Max, I've been hearing people say that during the COVID pause. I'm going to use this time to pay off my loans. During the SAVE forbearance, I'm going to use this time to pay off my loans. And then here we are 5 years later, and the delinquency stats and the people not paying and all the things are saying they didn't do it. Not to say that you're not going to find someone that did. There are absolutely people that did, but when I'm just talking about the whole system, not a lot of people did. So if you get on a repayment plan, you're just more likely to succeed. All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. I see Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and Twitter crew. Don't be shy. Drop some comments. I see you. I see you. And then our TikTok crew is rocking over here. Sorry, guys. When I touch the screen, it like scrolls through all the comments. So I will get back to you. Sergio, I don't want my kid to have any loans. I'm with you. It's a great feeling. Ari Marmar, what do we think about $67,000 a year for tuition? Well, if you are actually paying that for a bachelor's degree, it's not worth it. There's no math that supports that. So, Ari, the math of a bachelor's degree is a bachelor's degree in the United States today is worth between $60,000 to $80,000 max. You can really say it's worth up to $100,000 max because of inflation, because the stats are a couple years old. But if you're paying more than $100,000 out of pocket, you're already 50% chance it's not worth it. Like you're above the average of what it's worth. And so if you have, it's kind of like I view it like a car. If you have lots of money and you really want to buy this expensive G-Wagon and spend, $180,000 on a fancy car, and you have a check and you just write that thing and you want to do it, go for it. Enjoy that car. But if you're borrowing money for said car, getting a used, less expensive car that still gets you to and from where you need to go also gets the job done. I will also, though, tell you about these $67,000 a year schools, all of those really expensive ones. Just because their sticker price says that doesn't mean that's what you're going to pay. A lot of those are also very generous with their financial aid packages. So apply with the understanding with your child that I can't afford it unless they're giving you a 95% discount on the cost. So just be mindful on that one. Alex, part-time proration is not subject to grandfathering. That makes sense. I'm going to have to marinate on that one a little bit, but I can see that making sense. But I'm curious. I didn't see any NAFSA articles on it either. A lot of them were talking about other things. I'll have to reread the neg reg on the grant or the prorating of what the programs look like. I've been so focused. I don't know if you've seen our videos and our comments on grad and professional school. I haven't done that. And then I got hot. I don't know if you were here earlier in the live, but I got hot on the UCSD article about the percentage of freshmen that can't even do elementary and middle school math. So I was just diligently writing away on that one today because it's kind of shocking that out of a almost 8,000 person freshman class, 1,000 kids have to take remedial math. And you have to realize they had record enrollment of 160,000 applications. And so it's why did you reject potentially qualified people and take unqualified kids in there, and you're setting these kids up to fail? And the reason is grade inflation, test optional. They don't test anymore, and their grades are all A's, but they're really not A's because we don't fail kids anymore. So anyways, I gotta go read that one, Alex. I believe you on that one. I'm not saying it's not. I just have not read it. All right. Ari, I love it. The car scenario, you're more than welcome to take my analogy. I use that analogy a lot because I do view college as transportation. The goal is to get you from high school to a career that makes you money and fulfilling, and you want to do it in the way you can afford. And let's be honest, there are some really wealthy people out there that can afford whatever the heck they want to do. A lot of us aren't that way. We need to borrow and be mindful on how we're spending our money. And so getting there in the most effective way is important. Amy, why should the FAFSA be filled out now if I'm not starting college until next fall? So the reason you want to fill out the FAFSA is, well, first off, it just opened on October 1st, and it's the 2026-2027 FAFSA. And you want to fill it out now for a few reasons. Number one is that a lot of financial aid is first come, first serve. Not all of it, but the good money is. And so you want to be first in line. Things like federal student aid, pretty much anyone can get anytime. So the Pell Grant, the student loan. State aid varies. Some states have very late deadlines. I'm in California, and the deadline is March to fill out the FAFSA. But there's a lot of states, about a third of them, that also do first come, first serve for their financial aid. And then universities are the most notorious for being first come, first serve for financial aid. And once they give admissions offers and aid offers, and you didn't get your FAFSA in, guess what? Other people are taking that money that you could have got. And honestly, Amy, the FAFSA takes 20 minutes or less. By the time you're done watching me answer this, you probably would have been halfway done with the FAFSA already. I think a lot of people get scared about doing it. So a 20-minute exercise. But you want to make sure that you're getting that aid. For 20 minutes, the potential ROI of your time and effort can be huge. So Scrambled Acres, 170K. Welcome. Nothing to be ashamed of, but I'm curious, where did you get that? I'm going to guess graduate school, because you don't usually get there without it. So, Lisa, what to do for PSLF that should be done in June 2025 with buyback? I just got off Save to ICR. I don't quite know your question, but I'd love to help you what you need to figure out what you need to do for PSLF. Moving from Save to ICR was a smart move for PSLF. Scrambled Acres, currently on Save, 130. RAP and IBR are 430. So I think a lot of people are getting really hung up on Save, because first off, I know it was a low payment, guys, but a couple of things to think about. One, your payment on Save was based on your income from 2020, 2021, or 2022. It's not going to be what your payment would be today anyways. So stop thinking of what your payment was a year and a half ago, because you'd have to have recertified your income anyways. It's just how it works. Part two is I hate it because Save was a folly. It only was in effect for 8 months. It didn't exist before. Everyone only had IBR and pay as you earn before, and it's not going to exist in the future. So it's I wish we could do the Harry Potter wand and just pull the memory out. But here we are. Scrambled Acres, you're going to have to make a choice. The choice is IBR or RAP. That's what it's going to be. You have to choose, can I afford either now? Do I want to start? Do I need to fix some other things in my budget? Or do I want to wait a few months, get that done, and join the RAP next year? Those are your options. I can't change them, but I do want to see you start moving that way, especially if you qualify for public service loan forgiveness, because this time is not helping you. And if you're going for long-term loan forgiveness, because with 170K you might be, that's not helping you. This time is just costing you precious time. So. Lieutenant Frank, can teacher loan forgiveness 2 times in a lifetime? No, but you can sequentially do public service loan forgiveness and teacher loan forgiveness. You can do both. So if you've already got teacher loan forgiveness, you can continue to go for public service loan forgiveness if you'd like to do that. You can't overlap them, but you can sequentially do them. So something to think about. Thoughts on Tulane blackballing the entire school because one admitted student didn't honor ED. Alex, I think there's a lot more to this story because it was that private school in Colorado. I also heard there's 3 other schools that are unnamed. They're all elite private schools. I think there's more to this story. I was talking to somebody else in admissions, and I think the more to the story and why the school got blackballed versus just for that one student is I think the school was encouraging their students to kind of apply there and basically ignore the early decision and tell them, and I think an email might have come out or something, and this is all hearsay, I'm just put this out there, that an email might have come out that said don't worry about the early decision, they can't enforce it, whatnot, and this was being advocated by potential counselors, things like that. And Tulane found out about it and of course was nope, that's not cool. So But I also think, there are no repercussions really for not honoring your early decision application. So I think that might change. Tulane's also an interesting one because they admit like 35% of like their whole class on early decision, which is kind of one of the high outliers. So I don't know. I find the whole thing interesting because I know a lot of like the college admission crew are like, just hammer away these schools at early decision because it's how you get in, and they're not going to do anything if you don't get in. And I've seen that messaging. So, Black Diamond, what are the chances of widespread student loan forgiveness once Trump is gone? Well, if you're talking about like blanket student loan forgiveness, like everybody gets something, that's zero. And here's the funny thing, Black Diamond, the Democrats don't want to do that either. They had a chance to. They've had a chance to multiple times each decade, and they have not. And they don't want to. They actually don't want to do it. They do like doing programs like public service loan forgiveness, which I could see programs like public service loan forgiveness expand. Like, why does it have to be just public service employees? Like, why not anyone who has a job? Like, something like that, like 10 years, you work for 10 years and you get something for it. I can see those types of programs expand under a new administration. But I also want you to think of what the timeline for something like that would look like. Because I think a lot of people are like, well, the Democrats are going to come and save me. And it's like, no, they're not. They didn't save you when Biden was here. Trump actually has probably done more to help borrowers, crazy enough as it is to say, than the Democrats have done in the last few presidencies. Things like, too, like Bush is the one that signed PSLF into law. Like, it's weirdly counterintuitive. It really is. But with that being said, it would be 2030 at the earliest that we could see any massive reforms to the federal student loan system because of simple timing, right? So the midterm elections would be next year. They would get into the House in 2027. The presidential elections would be after that, and they would get in 2029. And so if they had both the House and the Senate, they would have it in 2029. They could pass legislation just like we saw over the summer of 2029, and then it would go into effect in 2030. So if you're hoping for any type of student loan reform that's different than the system that we have now, it's 5 years away. And so it's something that you need to kind of think about when you're making your own plan. I'm also a big believer, and you're going to find this if you keep watching us, that the government's not going to come save you with this stuff. You need to know your options, and you need to make the best choice for you today, because that's all you can do. And then maybe you do have to change your plan in 5 years, but at least you like executed and helped yourself for that 5-year chunk of time instead of flailed around, let loan balances get out of control, wrecked your credit, whatever it happened to be. All right. Got some shoes under here. Let's see. Kids leaving shoes under my desk. That's all good. If a Fed recertified income as zero during the gov, yeah, 100% it can. I highly recommended anyone that was a federal worker furloughed to use their $0 income to get that payment for 12 months. And that is still good. Lisa, I guess the likelihood that a buyback would happen, I do have to keep paying the higher payment on ICR. Well, Lisa, how many qualifying payments do you have? Are you already past 120? If you're already past 120 and submitted your buyback, it will get processed. It will just take a year. I have no qualms about buybacks being processed currently. I do think that there's a risk like 5 years down the line that buybacks might not. But I also want you to realize that, your SAVE buyback, which I'm assuming you did, your SAVE buyback, you're only going to buy back at the lower payment level from July of 2024 to June of 2025, at which point July of 2025 onward would be under whatever the lowest repayment plan is for you today. So you getting back on a payment plan, this month's right now are the same exact amount that you'd be paying on a buyback anyways. All right. What do we got here? Can I recertify my income without getting off SAVE and switching plans? Hillary, SAVE is dead. You have to get off SAVE. And when you get off SAVE, you have to recertify your income for your new repayment plan application. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, which payment plan do I want? RAP, which starts next July, or IBR, which is available now, and when can I afford to do so and want to do so? Remember, waiting doesn't really help you. It can help you if you need to fix your budget to like afford either of those two options, but those are the two options for you. Emmy, RAP doesn't show up when I do the loan repayment simulator. You are correct, it does not, and it will not show up until probably next June, but you know we got you. Emmy, you can hit the link in bio and you can run the RAP plan calculator on the College Investor website. The reason it's not going to show up in the loan simulator is because it's not a valid repayment plan for you yet. Remember, it doesn't go live until July of 2026. And that's also why the call center reps, if you call them and ask them, they can't help you with it. You have to do you, and we got you and help you out. And if you don't trust us, you can go on a search engine. There's like 3 or 4 other great calculators out there. I think ours is the best, but they're out there. Sickbo, is PSLF a good option for new physicians? Yes, it is a fantastic option for doctors and physicians. I highly recommend public service loan forgiveness for those going into the medical field because 1, you have a lot of debt. 2, there's a very high likelihood that you are going to be working in public service, whether for your residency and for your first few years in the workplace. And even if you are going into private practice or you have an aspiration to go into private practice, I would highly encourage you to like get your loans forgiven first and then make the jump. Depending on your specialty, that might be easier said too. If you have like a really long residency of like 4, 5, 6 years, you're like already halfway through public service loan forgiveness, and then you just got to work for like 5 more years, and then you can make the jump to private practice. But yes, PSLF is a fantastic option for doctors. Jay, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. It's nice to get comments, compliments. Jessica, what about transfer scholarships? Transfer scholarships exist. They're very rare. Not to say that they don't happen, but they're out there. I think you would have more of a likelihood like just finding private scholarships, but I'm not going to dismiss transfer scholarships. I am not the scholarship expert. There are a few awesome scholarship creators on this app and other places. I can tell you the finances of how that works, but I'm not going to be the one that can like dive into like every little nitty-gritty scholarship that's out there. Jay, once the new rules on PSLF, I have 1 month left. My job won't likely qualify. The new rules that they're potentially implementing don't necessarily mean that any job is going to get disqualified right away. So if the new PSLF rules go into effect, which if anyone's watching aren't familiar with it, the Department of Education wants to disqualify certain employers that do substantially illegal purposes. Substantially illegal purposes is kind of a gray area in terms of like what they define it as. And so there's already been multiple lawsuits. You might have seen my videos on those. But just because that rule goes into effect on July of 2026 doesn't mean any employer is disqualified on day one. In fact, it's impossible for them to be disqualified on day one, Jay. So if you only have 1 month left, you are safe. Because the rule goes into effect and then the Secretary of Education has to notify said employer that they are being disqualified. They have to give them a time to appeal it. And then if it's still found that they're disqualified, notices go out to their employees. I can't imagine that process is going to take less than, thank you, Jody, for less than 30 days. So you'll definitely at least get your month. My venture is it's going to be like a 90, 180 day process to disqualify anyone. And that's also assuming that it doesn't get caught up in courts and all kinds of stuff. So I would not worry about that rule. And I actually wouldn't even worry about the rule going into effect. I think it has a very good likelihood of not going into effect. Alex, exactly. Alex says targeted forgiveness is fine, but universal forgiveness is problematic. And that's kind of what we saw with the Biden administration trying to do blanket or universal student loan forgiveness. At what point in time does it just become a stimulus check and we're just giving people money? And maybe that's what you want to do, but when you start giving money to some and not to others, it becomes problematic. Whereas, doing some type of targeted loan forgiveness where you're doing something for 10 years or 20 years or whatever it happens to be, 5 years for teacher loan forgiveness. And we kind of as a society say that that's valuable, right? Like we value teachers and public service workers and we want them. And it's kind of no different than, Amazon offering incentives and bonuses to recruit people, right? That's their recruitment method. So Save payment was 80. Pay is the cheapest option is 360. Teacher is going for PSLF. Then Emmy, if you are a teacher on PSLF, you need to get going again. So get on that pay option and get it done. I know it's frustrating to try to anchor on that $80, but if your pay option is 360, it also means your save payment with your income today would probably be 200. So your delta is only like 160 bucks, but you're getting PSLF in like, what is that? 6 months, 7 months, 8 months? I don't know. Anyways, you're so close to PSLF. Get that PSLF, man. It's worth it. Jody, I do know how total and permanent disability loan forgiveness works. So if you are totally and permanently disabled, you can get your loans forgiven. There's a lot of nuance to that. If you're a veteran, the VA has a data matching system, and if you're 100% disabled in the VA, it'll automatically start processing it. If you are not in that, you can get an Social Security disability designation. And as long as it's 5 years out before your next review and you're totally disabled, you'll get your loans forgiven. You can also have a doctor write it down on the TPD form and send that in as well. There are some rules about earning income afterwards too. So you have a 3-year monitoring period if you don't get VA related, if you get the other ones. That you can't earn more than the poverty line, and you also won't be able to get a student loan again because they're not going to just give you another student loan. At least that's forgivable. You can sign a note that says like, I'll take a loan, I have to repay it. So something like that. But if you have a specific question, we'll let you know. And we have a great guide on it right here. Happy to point you in the right direction. The One King, I just started payments on IBR. Why is it so expensive? Do I have other options? IBR, the One King, is the cheapest repayment plan option available today. It bases your payment at 10% of your discretionary income. I feel your pain because I know it feels expensive, but like it also means that you have a lot of other income there. The RAP plan comes out next July, so you can compare it to the RAP plan. Again, I was talking to Emmy. We got a link in bio. You can run the numbers on the RAP plan. For some borrowers, especially those making less than $100,000 a year, the RAP plan will be cheaper than IBR. It's not going to necessarily be a lot, and it also does depend on your family size and how many kids you have, what your payment is. So yeah. That's a great point. Alex also wanted to throw in here too, is that you can't disqualify an employer, Jay, retroactively. So when we were talking about these PSLF rules, it's only going forward as well. And so they can't disqualify your past payments. Alex, I had students coming to my office looking just to borrow to get forgiveness. That was a big thing. It was also a big thing when Biden was there, as people were taking out student loans. I don't think people like to talk about the moral hazard of it, but there's definitely a moral hazard with free money from the government, as always. Vanessa, I applied for IBR. Mohela said I was good to go 11-2. 11-2 went on forbearance again. I'm expecting some of this to get resolved now that the government shutdown is hopefully over here in the next week. I mean today, but I don't know when they're going to get it restarted. I saw this a lot where people got their application process and they got kind of jammed up. And I don't know the reason for it. I don't have a great answer for you. If you have confirmation that you're going there, I'm assuming you're in some type of processing forbearance. They're also trying to update some of their systems on the back end. They're trying to update the IBR system to not have the partial financial hardship issue, things like that. And so I can see it happening soon, but at least you're in forbearance. If you talk to them, you should at least ask them if this is a processing forbearance or not, because if it's a processing forbearance, at least it does count, at least 2 months of it counts for public service loan forgiveness. But you're not the only story I've heard on this, and I don't have a specific answer as to why it's happening. But you should know your IBR is coming. I would assume if it's not on 11/2, it'll be like 12/2 or pretty shortly after. All right, guys, we've been going for 45 minutes and we have 10K hearts. You guys came a long way for me in 45 minutes. So if you're just joining us, my name's Robert. I'm the founder of The College Investor. I love talking about student loans, financial aid, saving and paying for college. We also do talk a lot about general personal finance and investing because they all overlap, guys. We're going live today on TikTok. We also have YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch going. And we always get a few people on Twitch that are just hanging strong with us. So if you're on any of these platforms, please like, subscribe, and follow. We do this every day. I've been doing this for 17 years. My team's been doing it for longer. We have our articles on the website, calculators, things to help you. And of course, we put out our videos on all these platforms pretty much every day. Now's the time though. Let's just drop your questions in the chat. If you're on YouTube, you know where to put it in the comment section. If you're here on TikTok, put it in the chat there and we'll talk about them. Sometimes I start talking and it might take me a minute to get to your question or comment, but we'll get there. Awesome. Thank you. I don't even know how to say it. It's so good. I don't know. I love it. Thank you though. Appreciate that one. User, if I'm a sole proprietor and can deduct everything I'm paid, bringing my AGI down to 0, does that make my student loan payment 0? If your AGI is 0, absolutely. Now, don't commit tax fraud. Don't write off things that you're not supposed to be writing off. Don't run personal expenses through your business. But absolutely do everything you can to lower your adjusted gross income. Some things that I love for business owners to do is contribute to an HSA, run your health insurance through your business if possible. You can contribute to a solo 401k or a SEP IRA. These things can reduce your taxable income significantly and bring down your AGI to have a low or $0 payment. With that being said, you don't need to make a 0 AGI to have a $0 payment too, user. Remember, you can probably have a $0 student loan payment, $30,000 to $40,000 a year, somewhere in there. Run the calculators and find it out. So, something to keep in mind when you're doing it. But small business owners, absolutely. It's another lever that doctors and those in the healthcare field can do as well, because a lot of them work as contractors, might have some other things that they can deduct. But you absolutely should be lowering your AGI, saving for yourself, right, at the same time. And there you go. Mohib, does RAP look at AGI? Yes, so RAP uses AGI. IBR uses discretionary income. And so they are slightly different, but they are all based on AGI. So RAP is like straight AGI, and then you get to subtract out $50 a month for each dependent under 17. IBR uses discretionary income, which is AGI times a multiple of your state's poverty line, divided by the number in your household, and there's a little formula right there. So they both use AGI though. RAP is just straight AGI, IBR, discretionary income, little formula based on AGI. Alex, I really like the elimination of negative amortization under RAP. Yeah, the RAP plan, the RAP plan took a lot of the things that borrowers were asking for to put into it. No negative amortization being the biggest. So what that means is if your income-based payment is say $10 a month and it doesn't cover your interest, the government forgives it and waives it. So your loan balance will never grow. Granted, you still might pay interest. It's just not going to get added to the loan if you don't pay all of it, which is fantastic. Part 2 is, my other favorite thing, Alex, is the $50 principal reduction subsidy. And so the other part of RAP is that if your monthly payment does not pay off at least $50 a month on your student loan, the government's going to make sure at least $50 is covered. So you can always feel like you're making forward progress on your loans. It's really not a bad plan. The only thing that might suck is for high income earners, it could be more expensive than it would have been under IBR, But then if you watch the news headlines, everyone says the high income earners should be paying more for things. So that's literally what this plan does. So I don't know. Not a bad plan at all. What else do we got here? I'm in save, but we'll come out of it if this will work 15 years in. It will absolutely work. You also, though, user might want to file your tax return for next year and compare your RAP and your IBR options and have that tax return finalized at your income level. So, Josh, thank you so much. College and high school, if you guys want to learn the best way, I think, to get ahead and get a lower price in college, knock a third 25% off, is get your college credits knocked out in high school, whether that's CLEP, AP, dual enrollment, whatever. Simplest way to reduce your college costs is to not take so many dang classes at the expensive college price and take them when you're in high school at free or very little price. I think Alex's great point here. So before his loans were forgiven for PSLF, his balance had grown from 90 to 170K because of that negative amortization. The interest wasn't covering it. Now PSLF is kind of an exception, right? Because it's forgiven tax-free anyways. But I think it's important for people to realize that now that taxability of loan forgiveness is back starting in 2026 and people could face a tax bomb, things like the RAP plan where your balance doesn't grow will be very beneficial, because if you do get the forgiveness after 30 years, which is a long time, you have to realize the government's betting against you. The government is assuming that like 98, 99% of people will have repaid their loans under RAP over 29 years, not 30, because they're not going to forgive it. But at the 30-year mark, if there's anything left, it won't exceed the original balance that you even borrowed. So, and it'll actually be less by at least, what, $3,000 because of the $50 a month principal reduction subsidy. So if you do have a tax bomb, they're literally just forgiving what you borrowed for college. There wasn't all this extra interest added onto it. Jess, is it worth moving my government student loans to private student loans? It is 99% not worth it. Jess, you should never, ever refinance. I'm not going to say never, ever, because there's always an exception, but 99% of borrowers should not refinance their federal student loans for private student loans. You think you're saving on an interest rate, which you're not. I would venture that it's going to be a very marginal delta if you do, because your student loans as an undergraduate are likely 3, 4, 5, maybe 6%. Your student loans as a graduate student, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8% if you've got it the very worst year. But if you want to go look at refinancing rates today, it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%. You're not going to save money on a private loan, but you lose a lot. You lose access to income-driven repayment plans. Save doesn't exist, but you got IBR, pay-as-you-earn, ICR, the upcoming RAP plan. You got options. Number 2 is you lose access to potential loan forgiveness. Not only do you lose access to public service loan forgiveness and time-based loan forgiveness, which is what's connected to IBR and RAP, you also lose access to things like total and permanent disability, which another commenter asked about. A lot of these private loan companies don't really forgive your loans for a lot of things. They also don't offer hardship deferments and forbearance. They'll offer some, but for 3 months, and it's one-off, and there's no structure, and you're rolling the dice. So no, Jess, don't refinance your student loans. If you're in the SAVE plan right now, you should be looking at IBR, RAP next year. Pick the least poisonous one for you. All right, glad that helped. Take a little mocktail break here. If you guys are just joining us, please like, subscribe, and follow. Tap the screen and drop your question in the chat. We are always happy to talk about it. YouTube's been very quiet. I see people coming in and out of the YouTube stream, but don't be shy, guys. Ask your questions. We're here. We don't bite. All right, you're my sunshine. If I consolidate my loans, do I lose the 44 payments I have already made in PSLF? So you don't lose them anymore, but you do lose them. And let me tell you what I mean, you're my sunshine, is when you consolidate your loans now, your new consolidation loan has a weighted average count of all your underlying loans. And honestly, unless you have a Parent Plus loan that you need to consolidate to keep access to public service loan forgiveness, which you don't because you wouldn't already have counts on it, you don't need to consolidate. Like most borrowers don't need to consolidate their student loans. There's no real benefit to doing so, except for Parent Plus loan borrowers. There might be a benefit. You can consolidate your single Parent Plus loan separate, You're My Sunshine. So You're My Sunshine chimed back in and she said, I do have a Parent Plus loan. Well, then I have a question for you. I'm a little confused. Are your 44 payments for your existing loan that you've already consolidated? Is the only way your Parent Plus loan gets counts is if you've already consolidated, in which case you don't need to consolidate again. If this is for your own loans that you had, and now you took a Parent Plus loan as an adult for your child, you can consolidate just that individual loan and not touch your existing ones. But if you did consolidate, new loan, weighted average of all your other loans. It could help you, but it's usually going to hurt you. Cool. So you can consolidate just the one for your son if you need to have access for it. If you do consolidate all three of them together accidentally, your new loan is going to have I'm going to say 22 payments overall, right? Because it's going to be like the 44 and then like the 0 on the Parent Plus loan. And it's going to depend on the balances and the stuff like that. Like there's a formula. You can type in PSLF weighted average consolidation and you can see what that formula looks like. But it's not going to, you're going to lose payments if you consolidate, but you can consolidate just the Parent Plus loan. All right. In Save, they changed my 25-year term to 20. If I switch out, does that go back up? User, I'm guessing you had a 25-year term because you were on IBR. And yes, so they didn't change your term. Save did have it, but remember, Save doesn't exist. Delete it from your memory. It shouldn't have existed. It really got screwy. You're on IBR. You can stay on IBR. It will be 25 years. Since we can't check payments for IDR forgiveness, how are we supposed to trust that the DOE will forgive? Well, Corona, this is a great lesson. You got to keep your own records. And I know you can't change the past, but you can right now go to studentaid.gov, log in, download your MyAid text file, okay? And then I highly recommend you go over to my friend Stanley Tate. He's another student loan lawyer. I'm not a student loan lawyer. I don't know why I said another, but he is a student loan lawyer. And he has a cool tool on his website called the Student Loan MyAid Text Reader. And you drop your text file in there and it'll tell you how many qualifying payments you have on each loan according to the master data file from the Department of Education. So that can help you catch up right now. And then good rule of thumb moving forward, you got to meticulously keep your own records for everything related to your finances. Never trust a bank, never trust a lender, always keep a copy. That's just good practice, especially in this day and age of AI. I don't trust people are going to doctor things up and whatnot. You keep your own stuff. GenCast001, I got my green banners 3 days ago. If you guys don't know, when you reach 120 payments on studentaid.gov, your whole banner is green and it looks all pretty. So congrats, GenCast. That is awesome news. Uh, 922 Duke. If you submitted your app, you submitted your app on time. And when the date you submitted it, you were not lying, that you got it. So you were in there. You enjoy your zero payment for 12 months. With that being said, of course, when you go to recertify your income a year from now, you're going to have to use your income from a year from now. That it's going to include your back pay and everything else. But Dude, you did it before the deadline. There's no harm, no shame in that. Like I keep saying, if the government wants to play games, you got to play games right back with whatever is legally allowed at the time. So Duke was saying he was furloughed, he had zero income, he submitted an IBR request at the zero income. The day you submitted your application, you were not misleading him. You had zero income. So all good. I changed my plan from save to IBR. I don't show I need to make a payment at this time. Is that right? Lebanese Fork, it usually takes about 30, 60 days to process it. Just keep watching your statements and you'll get a statement that says you got to pay your bill, and that's when you start paying your bill. Lena, my stepmom didn't adopt me but is responsible for me. Do I list her as a parent on the FAFSA? So your situation of divorced parents, the household that provides 51% of the financial support is who is your contributor. Now, you don't say parent because, like you said, it's your stepmom. So it sounds like it's your dad and your stepmom are the household that are contributors. And so, yes, if they're married and they filed their taxes jointly, Lena, only one of them needs to be added to the FAFSA, and then that one of them will do it for their whole household. So stepmom and dad, and that's how you fill out the FAFSA for your household. Lebanese, I made a $5,000 payment on my loan while I was in SAVE. Will that count towards forgiveness? No, it will not. Never, ever, 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 ever make extra payments on your student loans when you are trying to go for student loan forgiveness. You're wasting money. And when you're in forbearance, anything you put at your loans is not a qualifying payment for public service loan forgiveness or time-based loan forgiveness. So it doesn't help you. And why I say you're wasting money, and a lot of people don't connect with this, is your balance is going to be forgiven. And so you paying it down is money that you could have saved and invested and built wealth for yourself instead of having it forgiven by the government. So do not pay extra on your student loans when you are in forbearance. You want to switch to a repayment plan if you want to repay your loans, and then you can pay it off. But especially if you're going for loan forgiveness, you do not pay extra on it. Hey, thanks Unlocking College Admissions. If you have college admission questions, this is the one to go. I was chiming in on there live earlier today. All right. We are an hour into this, guys, so we're still going strong. Please give some hearts on there, throw them down, drop your questions. I see at least 6 of them that I'm going to work through here in a second. And if you're joining us, we are streaming live on YouTube tonight as well. We got Twitter going and Twitch going. So if you like to watch on a different platform, we're there. The YouTube crew is being very quiet with their questions tonight. A couple weeks ago, they were very active. Tonight, the YouTube crew is not being so active. That's okay. Adam, do I think the new administration comes in, they can refund students who got affected by the big, beautiful bill? Nope. They cannot refund anyone anything in the future because it doesn't work like that. 2, the changes to student loan repayment from the one big beautiful bill are generally viewed as positive as much as it seems like it sucks, because there's a lot of problems in the student loan repayment system and the student loan borrowing system. Number 3 is, remember, the next time a new administration is coming in is 2029. And so the earliest any type of massive reform to the higher education student loan financing system would be 2030. So as you're trying to decide right now in the fall of 2025 what your options are, you can't be waiting around 5 years to hope that something changes. You got to make decisions for yourself now so that you can better yourself now. So when you're looking back in 5 years, you can realize how much all the politicians are just politicians. All right, you're my sunshine. If you're in PSLF and you've retired before you hit 120, can you get PSLF? So PSLF specifically requires 120 qualifying payments. What counts as a qualifying payment, you're my sunshine, is a direct student loan, a qualifying repayment plan, and qualifying employment for that month that covers it. You got to have all three. And so if you retire, you don't have that qualifying and payment or qualifying employment aspect of it. And so those payments won't qualify. So it is something to think about as you're approaching retirement. Do I just work a little longer? Ooh, that sucks. Katie, I have $100,000 in private student loans and $30,000 in federal student loans. What do I do? That sucks. But here's what you do, Katie, is let's talk about your federal student loans first. I know it seems counterintuitive, but honestly, get on the lowest humanly possible repayment plan you can for your federal student loans. It's either IBR or RIP. If you're currently in SAVE, I'd probably ride out SAVE a little bit longer and you get aggressive on that private student loan. I would look at the debt snowball method, which is basically where you're snowballing, you're adding a little bit every single month to that loan based on paying off other debts. If you have any other debts, I'd look at side hustling, adding extra income, and just going hard at the private loan. And I keep letting the federal loan just ride because that thing's not earning much interest. It's not growing very much. You have income-driven repayment plan options on that federal loan, and you don't have any of that with the private loan. So like, just gotta like brute force get that private loan paid down. All right. Non-existent. I have sole legal custody of my granddaughter. Would she be considered independent? It's highly likely that she would be non-existent. So one, as a grandparent, you don't fill out the FAFSA. Your child fills out the FAFSA, and then there's a series of like 10 questions that are, we call them the qualifying questions for being an independent student. And if they check any of them, like I was the ward of a court, I am in a guardianship, whatnot, then yes, she would be an independent student. If you by any chance adopted them, then they become your child, but you're saying custody. So I'm guessing you're some type of guardian, in which case they would be an independent student. If you adopted them and they became your child, they're your child. JMG, are Sallie Mae loans eligible for loan forgiveness? No, so Sallie Mae is a private student loan lender. Private student loans are not eligible for any type of federal student loan forgiveness program. What private student loans can be eligible for, though, is student loan repayment assistance programs from like employers. So a lot of employers, especially the big ones, they're starting to offer these student loan repayment assistance programs where like they'll give you like a couple $1,000 a year towards your student loans, and you can use those for your private loans, but there's no types of federal student loan programs available for loan forgiveness for Sallie Mae or private loans. Lebanese Fork, if I am not working, will I have any IBR payments? No, if your income is zero or very low, you're certify that, and your monthly IBR payment is based on your income, which is very low or zero, so your payment could be zero. It's one of the things I got a lot of comments on. They're like, well, I'm unemployed. And I'm like, well, that's the best time that you should apply for IBR, because if you're unemployed, your monthly student loan payment would be zero or very low. I have to say very low because like you could be getting a bunch of like dividend interest or you DoorDash income. Like, I don't know where you're earning your money. Just being unemployed doesn't mean you don't have income. But with that being said, if you have very low income or you're unemployed, chances are you'll have a $0 or a very low IBR payment. So you should definitely be certifying. And you get that for 12 months. So the cool thing is it gives you a buffer. I think a lot of people don't always look into the future too. So let's say like you're unemployed right now, but maybe that's going to change come like February. Well, if you lock in a zero IBR payment right now in November and December, you get to keep that $0 payment for 12 months. So you get a job in February and your student loans are still zero. So now you got like March, April, May, June, all that year. You can use that time to like catch up, get your financial house in order from being unemployed, maybe pay off other debt before you have to kick up and certify your income again at the, whatever you're making. But then again, you could use your tax return, and if you had no income for this year, you might have another year of very low payments. So please, don't be bashful. If you have no income or you're unemployed, go certify it and get on a repayment plan. Alex dropped in the chat that Sallie Mae did have FFEL loans way back in the day. I don't even think they still do. I think if you actually are at Sallie Mae, they spun off all their FFEL loans, but there is a small chance they might own a few FFEL loans still, in which case FFEL loans could qualify for forgiveness, but you'd have to consolidate them into direct loans. Something to keep in mind. Is there such a thing as buyback, that I can buy back the time that was in forbearance? So that is what PSLF buyback is, You're My Sunshine. So there's a PSLF buyback program, and you can buy back the months that you were in the save forbearance. You buy them back at whatever your lowest monthly payment would be during the save forbearance for the first 12 months. And then now for the next series, which is now, it would be at whatever your payment is today. So that if you are in forbearance and you're thinking that time didn't count, you can buy it back. You have to write a lump sum check, but you can only buy back too once you hit 120 qualifying employment months. So you still have to get to that 120 qualifying employment months, and then you can buy back the missing payment months, if that makes sense. Because remember, the three factors, direct loans, you got those. Payment, employment. If you didn't have the payment from the save forbearance, you still can certify your employment for all those years, and then you could buy back that payment later. User 497, 2 children, Parent Plus loan. Should we consolidate and lose federal connotation and forgiveness? 2 children, consolidating your Parent Plus loan does not make you lose access to student loan forgiveness. In fact, consolidating your Parent Plus loan is what's going to allow you to maintain access to income-driven repayment and PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, after July 1st of 2026. I think a lot of people get confused on the difference between refinancing and consolidation, because a lot of people use those terms interchangeably. In the student loan world, we do not use those terms interchangeably because they mean very different things. Student loan consolidation is a free government program that allows you to combine your existing federal student loans into a new federal consolidation loan. This new federal consolidation loan is still a federal student loan, still has access to certain income-driven repayment plans and certain loan forgiveness programs. Refinancing, on the other hand, is when you take out a new private loan to replace existing loans. Most people refinance other private loans, but you can refinance federal loans. Not a good idea, but you can do it. There are some circumstances where you might want to, say you're a doctor making like 800 grand a year, you're not getting loan forgiveness, you just want like a low interest rate. Cool, have at it. 99.9% of federal student loan borrowers should not be refinancing federal loans into private loans. So user, for a Parent Plus loan borrower, you are one of the few folks that benefits from student loan consolidation, because Parent Plus loans don't directly have access to public service loan forgiveness or income-driven repayment. Federal Parent Plus loans have to be consolidated first, and this consolidation loan gets access to income-driven repayment and public service loan forgiveness. However, that is closing. That whole ability ends on June 30th, 2026 with the One Big Beautiful Bill. Starting July 1st, 2026, Parent Plus loans only have access to standard repayment plans. And again, consolidation doesn't make a difference. All right. Welcome, guys. If you're just joining us, we've been going for over an hour too. I'm going to take a quick water break. With that in mind, drop your questions, like, subscribe, tap the screen. We're going to keep going. We'll go for another 45 minutes here. A lot of great questions tonight. All right. JMG, I chose Sallie Mae over Parent Plus because Sallie Mae had no fees and lower interest rates. You know, that's going to be the main choice that families are going to make next year. Because, you might have heard me say, JMG, starting July 1st, Parent Plus loans have no access to income-driven repayment and Parent Plus loans. So private student loans starting July 1st of 2026 may be a better option for parent borrowers, especially if you can get a lower interest rate. Sallie Mae is one of many lenders. Shop around, compare. If you can beat the Parent Plus loan rate, private's going to be better next year. If you can't beat the Parent Plus loan rate, then Parent Plus loans like your backstop. Let me be more specific. I can't find where to find the PSLF buyback application. Studentaid.gov/ I'll tell you where it is. I mean, you could type it into a search engine. Studentaid.gov, manage loans, PSL, public service loan forgiveness, and then public service loan forgiveness buyback. You type it into a search engine too, You're My Sunshine, and you will find it. I miss the days when federal interest rates were floating and you could lock in rates. That's like 2006, 2007. That's a way back in the day. Mohib, does supporting your mother count as a dependent on RAP or any repayment plan? So it's a great question. RAP uses the IRS definition of a qualifying child, which means under 17. IBR uses family size, which could include a dependent mother. So that could help you on that side. RAP, not going to help. IBR, it could help if she's a dependent for you. Kim, can you buy back time while you're in the RAP plan? I knew this question was going to come up because maybe. I'm going to get you the writing. I'm just going to read this to you because it's not straightforward. So you're going to give me a second here, Kim. And the answer is maybe you can buy back time on the RAP plan. And this came out of negotiated rulemaking because it was not clear from the law, because RAP has a very specific definition. Hold on a second. Why can't I find this? There we go. I got my camera in the way of my my thing. RAP says that you must make a full payment every single month and you can't buy back. So I'm going to find you the definition here. All right, here we go. We're getting there. So this is what it is. For the RAP plan, in order for a payment to count on the RAP plan, a payment to count for PSLF must be made on time. For this reason, borrowers in the RAP plan may not directly buy back periods of deferment or forbearance. However, you can only not use buyback if you were on RAP directly before the period you were going to buy back. So it's not specifically going to apply to SAVE because there was no way you could be on RAP before you were on SAVE. Meaning, so if you were on RAP in July of 2027 and you wanted to buy back August of 2027, you couldn't do that. If you got on RAP after the period you were trying to buy back, for at least the 2 months after the deferment period, you should still be able to use buyback. And here's the reason why too, is because if you get on RAP in 2027 and you're trying to buy back SAVE from 2024, they are going to use your time in SAVE, in repay for that period of time, and then they're going to use IBR or pay as you earn for this period of time. And they're not going to count RAP. You can't buy back RAP payments directly, but you can be in the RAP plan and potentially buy back past payments. I hope that makes sense. I don't know. Alex, you tell me if that doesn't make sense. But basically, you can't buy back RAP payments, and you can't be on RAP before the buyback happened, but you can be enrolled in RAP to buy back older payments that happened before you were in the RAP plan. That's a nicer way to put it. hopefully that helps. So, Kim, I hope that makes sense. And the reason is because RAP requires you to make a full payment under the RAP plan to count for PSLF. But Kim, again, you can go on RAP and buy back Save Forbearance. But remember, Save is being bought back under Repay, and then it's being bought back under IBR or Pay As You Earn. It won't be bought back under RAP because, well, you can't use that month. That makes sense. So, you're my sunshine. Definitely happy to help. Thanks for being here. Girl from Natty, how long do I have until I must apply for IBR? Well, I'm assuming that you are on the Save Forbearance and you're asking how long do you have? We don't know the official answer. I can tell you a few things. I can tell you the law One Big Beautiful Bill Act says you have to be out of Save no later than June 30th of 2028. The courts may push that timeline sooner because they've already found Save to be invalid. And they found Save to be invalid back in February. And the government's basically been kicking the can down the road of telling the judge how we're going to get everybody out of it. So we're kind of waiting on that final answer. I have a good feeling that they might let people stay in there until the end of June of 2028. But I also kind of view it as a trap because I don't think most borrowers should stay and Save until 2028. You're basically shooting yourself in the student loan foot. Your interest is growing. You're not making progress for long-term forgiveness. You're not making progress for PSLF. I'm already seeing people not even being able to afford their buyback payment. Like, I think it's a little bit of a trap. And so I also think that's why the government might let you do it because they know that some people are going to shoot themselves in the foot. The government also wants to see people proactively choose a plan. They don't want to be the forcer of it. And so honestly, girl from Natty, run the numbers. Go see what your IBR payment is right now. Go run our RAP calculator. Go see which one's the lowest. If you can't afford either of them, realize that even in a year from now, those are still your two options. So you got to fix your budget to get on one or the other. Nancy, surprisingly, a lot of parents don't have 529 plans for their kids. You know, they don't, but it is growing. And so I think it's also important to put 529 plans into context, Nancy, is that if you're starting college today, ideally you wanted to start these 529 plans 10 or 15 years ago, and they really weren't as heavily talked about back then. And if you look at the numbers of people that enrolled in them and talked about them, we lived in a different era of like having a physical copy of Money Magazine and like just different things that how we got our media. And so a lot of people just didn't have exposure to even know what a 529 plan was 15 or so years ago when you probably wanted to start one if your kid is starting college today. Now, the cool thing is that we're just seeing massive growth in 529 plans, most assets ever into 529 plans. And so, but you realize that that's this cohort of like, you know, people started them 5-10 years, not 5-10 years ago, but like more recently, and they're growing. And hopefully in another 5 or 10 years, when this group of kids is going to college or paying for higher education, there'll be more money there. 529 plans are the best way to save for higher education. It's really funny you ask about this too, because Nancy, I'm talking to California's treasurer next week for our podcast, and we're talking about 529 plans. And one of the things that a lot of states are doing is they are offering free money for kids born in their state. And so California has the Cal Kids program, and all these states are doing it. But a lot of people don't know that they might have $100 or $200 or $500 waiting for their kid for free. They just have to claim it. And so we're trying to get the word out that if you've had a child born, at least in California in the last 4 years, you might have free money waiting for you. And I know there's other states that have done very similar programs that it's trying to help people get the head start on that stuff. So, and then Alex says, a lot of recent changes make them a lot more attractive. It's true. Back in the day, 529 plans were only higher education, which was college only. And now today you got K through 12 education. You of course still got college. You got student loans. You got leftover funds. You could roll them to a Roth IRA. There's a lot more flexibility in 529 plans. So again, 529 plans, best way to save for college. I love them. Hopefully people are doing more. User, does time in administrative forbearance count towards public service loan forgiveness? Not directly. So it's really important to realize that your time in forbearance does not directly count for PSLF. You can potentially buy back said time in the future once you cross 120 qualifying months of employment, but it's not going to directly count for you. It's also important to note, user, how it's calculated. So I think this is also what's stumbling a lot of people in the SAVE plan, is that they think they're going to get their SAVE plan payment that a lot of people are anchoring on, of like, I was paying $80 2 years ago and I'm going to get to keep that payment forever and ever. No, you're not. When you buy back, you're going to get the first 12 months at the lowest legal repayment plan of. Easiest way to think about it is every 12-month period is calculated at the lowest legal repayment plan available to you based on your income and family size at that time. So for borrowers in the SAVE forbearance, since that's what we're talking about the most, you get July of 2024 to June of 2025 will be calculated under the repay plan. And then July of 2025 to present would be calculated under the lowest plan available to you, likely going to be IBR, pay as you earn, things like that, which is exactly what you'd be paying right now if you were paying. And so since we've already passed July of 2025, 12 months in the SAVE plan, buyback is kind of moot because your buyback amount is the same as what your monthly payment amount should be today, right now. Oh no, I lost my sound. That's not good. Test. How's that? Are we back in action? Are we back in action? I'm gonna wait for one of you guys to say, yeah, we're back in action. We killed the mic, guys. Good thing I have a backup. We drain that battery all the way down. All right, we are back at this. So I don't know where I lost you, user, but basically I was saying that buyback is kind of moot now that we passed 12 months in the SAVE forbearance, because your buyback is going to be July of 2024 to June of 2025 under repay, and then your July of 2025 to right now is going to be under whatever you're supposed to be paying right now, IBR, pay as you earn, whatnot. So you sitting in administrative forbearance on SAVE is kind of silly, because you're just making yourself have to write a huge check in another year, when I don't know if you're going to be able to do that or not. And it probably is going to be easier to just make those monthly payments month by month as we go through this. So hopefully that helps understand how buyback works, what counts, and how it's calculated, because it pains me. And one of the things that really pains me, and I don't know if Alex was here, it was a couple of weeks ago on one of our lives, but it was, this girl had her buyback request. It was like $3,000, and she said she couldn't afford it already. And she thought it was going to be calculated under her SAVE payment. She didn't realize it was going to be calculated under repay. So it was twice as much as she was expecting. And she can't make the payment. And she's like, I'm just going back and working the PSLF the old-fashioned way. And so there's going to be a lot of surprises for people. And we're trying to get the message out, but I don't know if people are listening. Kim, yes. So when you buy back in 12-month intervals of the lowest monthly legal allowed plan that was available to you in those 12-month period of time. And so since SAVE is not a legal plan, anyone in SAVE is being calculated at the repay level, the lowest legal plan available during that period of time. So these 12 months, and I'm not going to lie to you guys too, we haven't seen a buyback that included March of 2025 yet. So remember, SAVE was found invalid by the courts in February, and that's why this repay was part of. And so, like, I could also see it changing. But anyways, as of right now, we are expecting repay for the 12-month period of July of 2024 to June of 2025. And then your buyback for the next period, July of 2025 to present, November, would be at whatever your lowest legal repayment plan is today, which is IBR, pay as you earn. That's what it's going to be. And so it's the same number that you would just be paying if you were paying. And so for people that are in SAVE and they're thinking about buying back in the future and you're not like already buying back, there's really no reason to continue waiting because buyback's just going to be more expensive. You're just going to have to write a massive check. Because remember, buyback is also a lump sum, Kim. You have to write your lump sum check within 90 days of your buyback offer being accepted. And so if you're not ready to write a $5,000, $10,000 check, whatever it happens to be, you're not getting approved and you just got to keep working. So something to keep in mind. All right, guys, we have another 30 minutes to go. We're getting more people on YouTube. I love seeing it, but they're quiet. They're not asking questions. I don't know if they're shy. And then here on TikTok, guys, we still got a good crew. I see a lot of people are joining us. Cami, Candace, Glenn, Ras. If you guys got questions, don't be shy. I know a lot of people like to watch other people's questions. I do too. But drop them in the chat, tap the screen. We'll let TikTok know we're here, and we'll keep chatting for the next little while. And of course, you guys are welcome. Appreciate it. Appreciate the likes, the follows. And I always love the questions because I think it adds a lot of clarity to everything that's going on. I don't think a lot of people there's a lot of nuances here. And no one likes to pay the government back their student loans. Look, guys, if we can get them all forgiven, I'd be the first one out here cheering for you to get them forgiven. I'm all about maximizing your loan forgiveness. But I also don't want to see you in a worse financial situation in 5 years because you were just so angry by politics. RAS started on 202, down to 79K and still on the SAVE plan. I mean, RAS, I'm going to give it to you. That's phenomenal. But I also know that most Americans, 99.9999, aren't going to be able to chop off 100K on their student loans in 3 months. It also tells me that your general, financial situation is going to have you repaying your student loans. You're not getting loan forgiveness, things like that, because you got money, man, which is phenomenal. But at the same token, then you just want to pay off and pay as little extra as you need to. Alex, do people still take out home equity loans to repay loans to get the tax benefits? It's not necessarily a great idea because they really clamped down on what you can deduct for mortgage interest now, Alex, with all the limits on the mortgage interest deduction. Part 2 is you're only supposed to deduct HELOC interest if you use it for home improvements, not just for anything. Now, granted, unless you're audited, they're not going to figure that one out, but that's what the law says. And so there's really not a lot of good benefits to doing so. Plus, HELOC rates are kind of worse right now than student loan rates. If you have good credit and income, you're probably going to be able to get a better student loan interest rate than a HELOC because the HELOC rates, even the best ones out there, are 8% these days. So there's not a huge benefit, especially because most student loans over the last decade are sub 8%. If you were one of the lucky ones in 2020, you have a 2.9% student loan or something. Again, interest rate's not what's killing people's student loans. It's balance. Every day of the week, balance is what's hurting your student loan payment, all the things. Not to say that interest rates doesn't impact it, but it's when we're looking at the pie, the interest rate's the 25% slice and your balance is the 75% slice. Any options to pay it down faster? Just don't have the money to just pay it all the way off. Well, that's fine. But if your goal is repayment, RAS, you just keep snowballing it down, throwing that extra bit at it every single month. My behavioral finance in me says get on a repayment plan. Don't stay and save. Because if you do slip up, and you miss a month or whatnot and the interest accrues, remember it's always interest first, then principal. And if you're on a repayment plan, like the standard plan every month, at least you're knocking that all out, and then your extra principal can go right to extra principal. So, Christine, I am 6 months away from completing 120 PSLF payments. Yes, I love it. Can I stop paying at 120? You will stop paying when your 120 is processed. So the real question becomes when you get your green banners and you get the little notification that says you're complete, you're done. That's going to depend on you a little bit on how quickly you get your employer certification in to get all your 120 months done, and how that lines up with your payment and when that's all processed. You'll probably be very close, but I also would not be surprised if you're making at least one extra payment. I would not think two. You could have to make one. Remember, you'll also get a refund for any additional payments you make. So I'm always of the believer, better safe than sorry. The bottom line is don't stop making payments until you get the nice little notification that says no more payments required. And that's going to be, like I said, on you to get that employment certification in right after you make that 120th payment. So, what else do we got here? 188K in student loans. I haven't started paying yet since I'm in the save forbearance. Bad idea to prioritize savings and then start paying in a few months. Farmer, I would say, what's your plan though with your loans? It kind of depends on what your long-term plan is. Are you going for some type of loan forgiveness, like public service loan forgiveness or long-term time-based loan forgiveness? And then also, have you run the numbers on what your IBR payment is and your RAP payment is? With all that info, you can make an informed decision on what you need to do. Is it a bad thing to prioritize savings? Not necessarily, but you could be costing yourself good time for potentially working towards loan forgiveness. You also might qualify for a lower payment today if you're using old tax returns or you have lower income than if you wait till next year and you're using this year's tax returns. I don't know what your income situation is. So, and then here you are. Oh, I should keep scrolling a little bit. I got more info. If you file joint or separate, you're going to have to do the taxes on that one. So, Farmer, if you've heard my talk before on married filing jointly versus married filing separately, yes, it saves you on your student loan payment, but it has the potential to significantly increase your taxes, okay? And what that means is that you might save, let's just say you save $100 a month on your student loan payment, so $1,200 a year. That's cool, but what if it raises your taxes like $4,000 a year? Not worth it, right? And so you need to do the math on how much it's going to cost you tax-wise, because it's always going to cost you, but does it lower your student loan payment enough to justify it? So big thing is, though, run the numbers right now, know what your two options are. Jesse, what is long-time loan forgiveness? So I call it time-based loan forgiveness, or some people call it income-driven repayment plan-based loan forgiveness, but that's a lot to say. So all of the income-driven repayment plans, IBR, pay-as-you-earn, ICR, and the future, did I miss one? IBR, ICR, pay-as-you-earn, I guess the save was there, and then the RAP plan that comes out next year, all provide loan forgiveness after a certain period of payments. So the new RAP plan that comes out next year is the longest at 30 years. IBR, which is currently available, is 25 years for old borrowers with loans before 2014, or 20 years for new borrowers with loans after 2014. Pay-as-you-earn and ICR are both going away, but they're 20 years. And so all of these loan forgiveness programs all include loan forgiveness at the end of the tunnel. It's kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel. So if for whatever reason, it really takes you 30 years because your income never increased, life didn't work out financially for you, you didn't qualify for any other type of loan forgiveness program. It's kind of like the last stopgap so that you don't have these loans forever. So think about it. It's a taxable light at the end of the tunnel, but I'll also say potentially taxable light at the end of the tunnel. Because for a lot of borrowers, there actually isn't a tax bomb. We do have a tax bomb calculator on the College Investor to help you estimate what your tax liability could be. But a lot of borrowers also find themselves to be insolvent at the end of the tunnel, and so there's no tax bill due, or they're partially insolvent, and so there's a minimal tax bill due. And why I say a lot of them are is because if it really financially wasn't working out for you to repay these loans, there's also a good chance that you weren't able to save and invest and build a lot of assets to offset the amount of student loan debt being forgiven. Now, there's always the outlier. There's always the 5% of people that know how to pull all the levers and have been maxing out their 401ks and lowering their income, and they might have a big tax bomb. But generally, the tax bomb is a little more overblown than I think the headlines, at least the headlines in the last 2 days, make people believe. But it is a potential added cost, and you can't dismiss it. So you should plan for it accordingly. Awesome. Cool, guys. We got another 15 minutes, too. I think there's still a lot of people still joining us. Jesse, so that was a great question. Dira, Patrick, don't be afraid to ask your question or come chat with us or say hi. I know there's still some folks out there in YouTube live land. Don't be afraid to join us. Drop a question in the chat. We got another 15 minutes or so here. So Jesse's on IBR or Save with 63 in loans. I have been paying since 2008. I currently owe $97,000. So Jesse, I really hope you get off of Save ASAP if you're still there, because Save does not help you with any type of time for your loan forgiveness. Since you started in 2008, it is 25 years for you, but this Save period doesn't count. You got to wipe that off. It doesn't count for the time-based. So the quicker you can get back on IBR, the quicker you can start making progress again towards that loan forgiveness. So 2008, 2018, 2028, 2033, 2034 for you would be your forgiveness timeline, 9 more years, assuming that you get off of Save pretty quick, and or you don't find another path to loan forgiveness like public service loan forgiveness or something else along the way. So you're welcome, Jesse. That's, I know a lot of people are frustrated when they're like, why does this guy keep telling me to get off of Save? And it's because it's literally costing you an extra year of your life if you were still there. So if you can't afford IBR, that's a different thing, but check it out, get back on track. My son will be graduating with his master's in 2026. Can you provide any advice for repayment? What's he getting his master's in, Kim? That's cool. And then what does he do, I think, is the other big thing, because generally there's 2 paths. There's the people that are going to get the loan forgiveness path. So if it's a master's in education, I'm assuming that he's a teacher, works for a school district or a college. That is the path that a lot of people choose. So the goal for him would be to find the lowest legal repayment plan he can do, pull every lever that he can to lower his income, maximize his 403B. If he has an HSA, throw money in the HSA, lower that income as much as he can do so that he has the lowest payment. And then he makes 10 years of payments under this income-driven repayment plan, which for him, it'll be RAP. It's the only option available for him because he's next year in July or in 2026. Get on the RAP plan, make those payments for 10 years, keep the payments as low as you can by pulling legal levers, guys, and then get the most loan forgiveness that you can possibly get. Patrick, I have 14 months until I reached 120. I hope there's no issues until then too, Patrick, but just make sure you're meeting all the criteria, right? Repayment plan, get on the correct one. And then also make sure you're certifying your employment every single month. PSLF is going to be a lot less important in the future with the elimination of Grad Plus loans. I don't know if I dismiss it as not being important, but it will not have as much value potentially. Of course, the doctors and 200K, they're still going to get a ton of value out of it. Like, I'm not passing up 200K, but I do see a problem with the master's in education because you're only borrowing 40,000 now because 2-year program, 40,000 bucks. Maybe you do have some undergraduate debt though, so like it still can be beneficial. But there's also much better odds that people are going to repay some of this before they get their loan forgiveness, which also might be what you're alluding to. Because remember, it takes 10 years. So, yeah, totally. I also think the interesting thing, Alex, and I don't know if you see this with masters in education, but I think we're going to see, and I'm hopeful, and it's like weird. It's like a weird hopeful, but I'm hopeful that we see states changing their masters in education requirements in light of this, because, what is it? A dozen states require you to get a master's to continue teaching, usually like after 5 years, something like that. And I wonder, and I think we're going to see states pull back on those requirements because like people can't even pay for them now. Over on YouTube, James is here, and we finally got a question. What's considered a good SAT score? And so the average SAT score is 1,000. You're shooting 1,000, you're shooting at the 50% mark. I would say good is when you're getting over 1250, 1300, 1350, you're getting into the good range, and then over 1350 and above, you're getting to the great range. So those are the options. What was it? Is it Prep Scholar? James, you might want to check out Prep Scholar. I think it's on their website. One of the test prep companies, they have all the average GPAs by college. So if you have some colleges you want to get into, you can go to their website, you can put in the college name, and it'll tell you what the average score is that the kids that are getting entered are there for. It's kind of a cool tool, so you know what you got to beat. So, yep, Alex, I like to see that as well. Social work is another one. Especially it's like there's these few degrees, and they basically put people into almost indentured servitude to do the work. And now that the pathways to get the debt forgiven for said indentured servitude are going away, like should these really be requirements that are necessary? And of course these degrees can still exist, and if people want to pay for them. But, with no pathway to loan forgiveness anymore, should the government mandate them? All right. Cool, guys. Colleen, Lainey, Wacky Wisdom, Teresa, T-Dub, if you guys are just joining us, we are going to be here for another 10, 15 minutes or so, and I'll be answering your questions. So you can see it right here. We've been going for almost 2 hours. This has been fun. Great conversations tonight, guys. So I love it. Alex, yeah, it's gatekeeping takes advantage of people working for the public good. It really does. And like you said, I don't know if it's necessarily required to make you good at what you do. It's just, some of the bureaucracy requires it for pay raises or, whatever. And I don't know if that's necessarily the metric that we want you to. Right, Teresa. Social work employment at the base level doesn't, but to start seeing patients and making more money and doing some different things, it can. And I would also say very lucrative is also relative, because for the amount of money you're spending, the break-even point on those salaries, even in the 150, 170K range, which is kind of peak from my understanding, doesn't necessarily justify the cost of that degree. It sounds good on paper, but like when you kind of pencil out that you're already in your 30s and you only got X amount of time left that you want to work, and now you're trying to service this debt and maybe pivot in your career, do something different, the ROI doesn't work out. I just kind of one of those things, like when you see people approaching retirement, I don't generally see a lot of masters in social work, highly like wealthy retire early folk, right? They do fine. Like we're not trying to say it's a struggle bus, but it can be a struggle bus. But it's not necessarily the springboard that we're seeing to wealth. It's like the springboard we're seeing to like fight to be middle class and make ends meet. And that sucks. Like we shouldn't have to battle so hard to do it. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's definitely different levels of it too. But it's like when you start seeing patients in my conversations with people and like what the peak salary is. And it's hard because when you start looking at like graduate degrees and like peak salaries in medicine and law and some of these other schools, and like when you start comparing the cost of school and you're like, man, I'm going to spend $120,000 to get a master's in social work. I could have spent $200,000 and gotten a doctor, and like I would have made so much more. I don't know, like it's really challenging. So master's degrees are in a way almost incredibly predatory, which I have to say, Teresa, too, some of this comes from the data. I don't know if you've ever looked at the FREOPP data set. I don't know if you're still here, Teresa, but yeah, you are. Great. FREOPP, they have a really cool data set on every single master's degree program that exists in the United States. And they'll tell you how much it costs and then the average money that people are making like 10 years out, and they do an ROI calculation. And 40% of all of them are negative. It's like crazy. And it's not a pretty chart when you start digging into all the statistics. And that's it. Insurance reimbursement is the issue. Yeah, like they just, what we all should be, Teresa, is we should all go be like in health insurance companies, because that's how we make the wealth, right? Because you can make the patients not pay. If you make the patients pay, you make the government pay you, you don't pay the doctors, and then you keep all the money in the middle. I don't know. Right? They just keep it for themselves. They just keep it for themselves. All right. Cool, guys. We got 5 minutes left here. This is the time. If you guys, I think I can do like a quick timer here. Let's see. I don't know. If you guys got a question, now is the time to drop it in the chat. We will do a quick lightning round of last minute questions. Teresa, thank you so much for being here. I think you were here for quite a long time. I appreciate it. And Lebanese and Cami, Alex. I work for public health school, and it definitely does not have a positive. That's not the thing you want to say. You want to see. You work for the public health school, and it does not have a positive ROI. It's a challenge. I think it's really hard because I think there's also a lot of good folks. The truth does hurt because there's a lot of good folks that there's a value in education, but we've almost taken college away from education and like costs so much money, and it is an investment, and you have to view it as an investment. And your investment, even though you are getting to be like more knowledgeable about things and whatnot, has a monetary value over the next 20 or 30 years of your life. And either you're going to have a struggle bus to like pay it back and deal with it, or it's going to help springboard you into the hopeful financial freedom that you think. And it is a personal good. And that's where I think programs like public service loan forgiveness are valuable, because I think we kind of have to say like, it's a good thing, but it's just not great on a personal basis. So how can we like, offset that? So, right, Mike, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. Rar, welcome. We got a few minutes left here. Kyler, Wacky Wisdom, I see you there. Now's the time to ask your question if you guys have one. And I know we still have a few folks hanging out with us over on YouTube and Twitch. So if you guys are interested, have a question, now's the time to drop it in the chat. And I will talk about it, answer it. And then until next week, we will be here. I gotta figure out how to use these effects pretty good. Do. Oh, thanks, Alex, for liking the live here at the very end. Lainey, we usually do our weekly lives here, Thursdays, 5 to 7, sometimes, 5 to 7 Pacific time. I know some of you aren't there. And then usually we might have sometimes a Tuesday afternoon live as well, Pacific time. But this is our usual live time. Of course, you can watch our videos. You can always drop us a DM, send us a comment on the website. Myself and my team, we publish all the time, articles, videos. We have our podcast wherever you are. Wacky Wisdom. I love it. Thanks for saying hi. I like to listen too. It's fun. I almost think of the old Susie Orman days of like when people would call in. And that's what I kind of like want to do in the modern internet age. Because like I always thought that was fun on like CNBC, and you'd watch it and people would call in and ask their questions, and you don't always get that anymore. And so that's why these lives are pretty fun to do. Kind of nostalgic in a way. Cool, guys. All right. Well, we made it to the 7 o'clock hour. Harper Dude, thank you. Appreciate it. And we will be back next week. And of course, please like, subscribe, and follow if you haven't done so yet.